All right. Um, I'm Moshe, and I'm coming to you from Israel in the Galilee. Today's February 9th. It's 8:30 in the morning, and I think in Israel anyway, because that's where I am. We got a nice day cooking up. 63 degrees now. High of 71, which is pretty darn nice. Not that sunny but it's sunny now, but they're talking about a lot of clouds during the day. And still warm. And then tomorrow, sunny, and we drop down to 70 degrees. Go figure. Here comes the bad news. Wednesday, what is it saying? 50 or 60%, 60% chance of rain. Yuck. And again on Thursday. Well, I'm going to pray we don't get that. My Heavenly Father, Jehovah, I pray we don't get so much rain. We're looking at the weather saying 3 days of rain in a row, or is it 4? No, Wednesday rain, then Friday and Saturday rain. So I pray, my Heavenly Father, this rain never shows up or not in my area. B'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach. Now they're telling us this coming Sunday, this is a little shocking. We're going to have 77 degrees, and Monday 77, and without any rain or anything like that happening, and sunny the whole way through. So Monday 7, Sunday 70. This is what they're telling us. It's really hard to swallow. Friday with the rain, we're going to have 70 degrees. Thursday without the rain, we're going to have 67, confusing me. Then Saturday with the rain, we're going to have 70 degrees. Sunday, sunny, 77. Monday, sunny, 77. Tuesday, sunny, 67. Why is it going to drop 10 degrees? And then they're telling us 68 on Wednesday. I don't know. Guys, they're wrong so much of the time here in Israel. I never saw anything like it. All right, anyway, today's a nice day. 71 is a really nice day. I'm not going to complain about that. What we're going to cover today is I'm going to lay out for you why I think we're getting prodded or pushed into attacking Iran, not America. And I'm going to do it going all the way back to previous to October 7th and build it for you. Okay? And you can make your own decisions. And it may not happen. I don't know. I'm modeling this to a good extent after what happened in June 2025 with the 12-day war and how Trump punked out and never did anything to Iran, and he had all these warships here and all this and that. I think it was, way over 25 warships running around. It was huge. And he punked out, So I think he's going to punk out again, and I think this was the plan all along. Now, I do think, I'll go through this with you. It's a pretty interesting theory. And then we're going to break down this new radar that China says they have, that they gave to Iran. Now, I don't know how many pieces they gave to Iran of this radar, but I would guess it was probably a half a dozen or something like that. And we're going to go into how anti-stealth is this, and can they bring down a stealth plane? Okay. Now, a lot of it is going to be speculative because we have never seen them take down a stealth object yet. All right. So I'm going to go into the live, and then we're going to do our spiritual warfare and keep Satan and the powers of the air in a bad way, because that's what we need to do. And we learned that when we did spiritual warfare against the governments, which we still do, all that happened is Satan froze. So he said to himself, oh, look at this. I have my people in running every country in the world, bar none. Why should I let wars happen? If wars happen, I could lose. These are end days, and I could lose control. So I'll just sit tight. Then we went after them economically, and that isn't going to be any, he can't just sit tight anymore. So now the confusion and the bewilderment and the craziness is beginning to kick up, and it will get worse. We're making Satan weary, at least we're trying to, and I think we are, instead of him making us weary, which he'll still do to some people. But we're making this jackass weary. We're making Satan weary, at least we're trying to, and I think we are, instead of him making us weary. And don't ever be afraid of him. But we're making this jackass weary. And don't ever be afraid. He wants you to be afraid of him, because that's really like a sinful thing, because you're thinking God's not stronger and you're not believing God. All things happen for good to those who love the Lord, including Satan and his moronic ideas. All right, I'm going to put a post up in the live stream, which is probably going to take seconds. Okay, I got that up. Let me pin it up. Why I gotta tap it twice to get it up, I don't know. Okay, got it in there. That's the end of that. All right, we're a Bible-believing site, Old and New Testament, so I'm going to do some praise, which if you want to join in, you can. There is no God like Jehovah. 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 There is no Messiah like Yeshua. 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 All right, let's get into this anti-stealth aircraft radar, which is rather important, that Iran has cooked up and delivered, we believe, a small number of pieces to the Iranians. Now, what it does is it works on a low band. Now, I believe Russia tried something like this with the S-400. It works on 3 different bands or something, but it doesn't cut it. What is likely going to happen is they will be able to detect the stealth aircraft within a circle of perhaps, 10 miles, something like that, maybe a mile, 3 miles. What does that mean? It means it's useful to Iran. Why? They're not able to get this anti stealth system locked into the Chinese anti-aircraft missiles that are associated with it and take down the stealth jets. We don't believe that'll work. Now, can we be wrong? And it does work. Yes. Do I think that's the case? No. No. Venezuela had this radar recently, and Trump, well, the Americans, went in, and what they did is they jammed it electronically, and that worked. So maybe the game has shifted. I'm giving this a low probability, maybe 25% at most. Maybe the game has shifted, and they can locate and attack and take down a stealth jet like an F-35. I'm really leaning away from that, but it could be. Now, does Iran's behavior line up with something like that? No, not at all. Iran's behavior lines up like this. The stealth radar is going to help the Iranians know they're coming under attack. They're going to know how many stealth aircraft there are in the air. And it's rather long range, too. I think it goes out about 300 kilometers, like 180 miles. But we're not really sure of that either, are we? So, they'll be able to know, oh, we got stealth jets headed towards Tehran. Let's sound sirens and everybody take cover in Tehran, rather, whatever they call it, the capital. All right. That's not that helpful to them, but they know they're coming under attack. So what are they going to do? Well, they have anti-aircraft systems that go back to being guns that shoot like, 20 millimeter or heavier guns in the air. And I think they shoot 40 millimeter flak and stuff like that. The chances of hitting a modern jet with that kind of stuff today is so slight. It would almost be an accidental strike. It's that bad. So what the heck are they doing? They're getting an early warning system, okay? What will that mean? They'll probably see the jets coming in from Iraq or over the Persian Gulf. And then they could fire up their missiles and fire them up for sure, before the stealth jets do any damage. In other words, it's helpful to them, but it ain't taking the jets down. That's the consensus. And I researched it, and do I believe them? Yes. I don't think it's that good. If Iran had it that good, they would be playing a different game altogether. And they'd probably talk about taking the jets down and stuff like that. I don't think they would be acting this way. I don't think so. So it may cause Israel and America to go into jamming. And if you remember in the past weeks, a lot of these very high-tech electronic warfare jets from America have come over here, which makes me think they're going to be jamming. The other thing they do is this. America and Israel have missiles that are basically cruise missiles. So these are low altitude missiles. They go very, very low, which means the chances of them evading any kind of radar, this or anything else, is rather high. And they go about 550 miles an hour. They got a pretty long range. And we have one we call the Delilah, which gets onto the radar beam of the radar. So the radar is sending signals out. You don't see them, but they're there, right? It locks onto those signals, gets a GPS coordinate for the radar, and goes at it. If they shut the radar off, would the missile break the attack? No. It would continue on that GPS coordinate. Now, if they break the radar, in other words, they shut the radar down, does that mean the missile can't get there? No, it still has the coordinates and it will get there. And if they shut the radar down and move it, what does that do? Well, that means the missile does no good. It hits the ground or something like that. There's nothing there. How far they got to move it? It's 100 yards probably, but they'll probably move it a quarter mile or half a mile or a mile or something. They'll move it significantly. Now, we know America has similar missiles, so they're going to be they can be launched from the aircraft or from a vessel, I believe, and they could be launched from the ground, surface to surface. They could be launched from naval ships and from aircraft. So there's probably going to be a lot of deployment of that and a lot of jamming. So I don't think this is a game changer. I think it's a mild modification. However, we could all be wrong. And Iran is acting just like the way they did back in May and June last year. And they're sucking America in, and then they're going to snap the trap shut. And these stealth aircraft are going to get picked up by their radar, targeted by their missiles, and brought down. Do I think that is what's going to happen? I really, truly do not. But as I repeatedly tell you, when you're in end times, you have to be prepared for surprises. I know that the Americans are scared bad about losing ships, so they're keeping the ships far away. So, they're not too scared about aircraft. All right. So that's the story on that. So if you hear stuff like that, it's at this point, I don't see any real reason to be worried about it, but I think it's useful to, let's say, be concerned and observant to see how this plays out. The way it played out in Venezuela against this radar was electronic jamming of the radar. So the radar is apparently vulnerable to that. Now, they would keep, why would they want an electronic jam? Because they still have issues. Like Venezuela had F-16 jets. So they could launch F-16 jets to try to find the American planes. If they know roughly in the sky where they are, they might be able to get close to them, and their radar on the plane might pick up the stealth jet, but probably wouldn't pick it up. So it doesn't help much, but it is helpful. So that's the deal. At this point, it would be premature to go and to go out and say, "Oh, the stealth jets are finished." No, no, no. Okay. Um, Iran 2 days ago was saying, if anything happens to us, we get attacked, we're going to hit the American bases. We're going to kill 1,000 people. Now they're saying 3,000 to 4,000 people. They are. Now, if Israel hits Iran, which is what happened in June, and we suffered for that, our bases got damaged, $53 billion in claims for damage, plus the government damage. I don't think that's funny because it's bankrupting Israel, and it's keeping people from staying in Israel, which is a goal of Satan. Okay, so what? This could be a reproduction. However, the loading up of the arsenal in the Middle East is quite a bit different than what it was back in the spring last year. Somewhat more aircraft, different aircraft to an extent, and not a great extent, and way more reduction in ships. There's 10 ships here now from America in the Middle East. If the George Bush carrier group gets here, that number will go up to 14, counting the carrier and the 3 escorts. If there is a third aircraft carrier, it will go up to 18. I cannot get a hard lock on there being a third aircraft carrier now. I'm not even sure the Bush is going to come here. It left Norfolk, Virginia on the 13th of January. Where the heck is the thing? We don't know. So it may or may not come here. Let's get realistic about that. We don't know. We don't know. Why could this be a plan from the very beginning? I'll tell you. Some of you are going to give me a lot of oohs and ahs, and some of you aren't going to like it. Okay, October 7th, 2023 was the attack on Israel, where Israel's guard was let down, and big shots in Israel calling Netanyahu a liar about this. Netanyahu has been doing anything he can and everything he can under the sun to stop any type of independent investigation as to what happened. He only wants to use his people to do an investigation. Well, how stupid does he think the Israelis are? So, going back to around August or September, late August or early September, Biden, previous to that, Biden never wanted Netanyahu coming to the White House, had no use for him. Then all of a sudden, Biden steps out. Yeah, Netanyahu could come here anytime he wants. We love Netanyahu and all that, right? A complete, whoa, what the heck happened kind of thing, right? All right, then what? On September 23rd, Netanyahu goes to America in the White House. And we're told he was warned or told about this planned invasion into the south of Israel from Gaza. All right. And we're told that there were other warnings given to Israel from several countries about this, and Israel obviously didn't react correctly about this. That goes without saying. Okay? So he leaves from America, comes back to Israel after the 23rd of September. Maybe he comes on the 24th or something. I don't remember. Then October 7th happens. About 2 weeks later. Now, this is the norm for Gaza back then. They had cameras, day and night cameras, monitoring the border. They had lookout posts with soldiers in there. If the soldiers picked up the phone or the radio or any means of communication and screamed attack, they would get help in maybe 8 minutes or something like that. Armored vehicles, helicopters, jets, stuff like that. 10 minutes most, okay? We even had what's called trackers, like the Apaches had in the 1600s, you know. They could track people in the desert. And they weren't there. Now, they start coming through. They're coming through on gliders that have a motor with an engine. They're coming on foot, maybe dirt bikes a little bit. And it was about over 1,000 of Hamas, maybe 1,500, and they had a few thousand nice, loving Gaza citizens that wanted to come over here and rob and kill and rape and plunder with them. They were paying $10,000 for every hostage, dead body included. Netanyahu, for years previously, fought against people in Israel having guns. They still haven't gotten away from Netanyahu and the gun control. He's got the people brainwashed into thinking gun control is a good thing. They should hand the surplus rifles out to every Jew in Israel that wants one, with about 400 rounds of ammo. But they don't. It's a horrible thing with Netanyahu. He's literally a curse on Israel, in my opinion. Okay. So they start coming in. What happens? On that day, the soldiers in the lookout tower were females, and they were never combat trained. So they may never have even been taught how to use a rifle. Or maybe they got superficial training, okay? They're watching from the lookout towers, and they're calling up and saying, we're being invaded. And the soldiers answering the phone had to be in on it because they're sitting there laughing at them, saying, no, and nothing would happen. They didn't take it seriously. Well, they probably knew they were in on it, I would think. And a lot of these female soldiers and the male soldiers got killed. A lot of them. And some got taken hostage. Okay. Now, I got up that morning and I was going to sit outside with the dogs. It was warm weather. It was about 5 in the morning, 5:15, I don't know. And my phone starts going crazy. Maybe it was by that time 6 or quarter to 6. The red alerts are going off nonstop. I'm sitting outside. I don't know what's going on. I'm not hearing aircraft. I'm not hearing sirens. I'm not hearing bombs. And I don't know what's happening. All the red alerts are going crazy for every area. And my phone was going beep, 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 beep. It wouldn't stop. So I said, well, they probably hacked it. And they're, they're ruining the signal, scaring everybody. Okay. It keeps going. I'm on social media looking around to see if I get anything. And it takes maybe 45 minutes. And I start seeing other people wake up and they're going on social media asking people if they know what's going on. And we don't know what's going on. And then soon we start realizing there was an attack, an invasion, right? Now, normally you would, with something like that, normally you would have gotten aircraft flying over Gaza, attacking them as they approach the border in a matter of minutes. You would have had tanks down there. We probably would have had 15, 20 tanks there rather quickly, and the thing would have ended. And those that actually entered into Israel would have been caught in Israel. And all this raping and robbing and burning people alive wouldn't have happened. So nobody's coming. No planes, nothing for about 3 hours. No, that was no accident in my book. There's at least 1 million Israelis that would agree with me and say the same thing. Combine that with Netanyahu fighting an independent investigation of what happened tooth and nail, relentlessly resisting it. You certainly have a real suspicious situation with that jackass, Netanyahu. Okay? Putting the pieces together, what do I think was going on? Okay. Biden's just another president, like Trump, like Obama, like Bush. Okay. And there's other powers that be other than them. Okay? So they knew they had trouble with Iran over BRICS and selling the oil off the US dollar. And they knew they had trouble with Russia doing that, so they had Ukraine taking care of it. Now they had to have somebody take care of Iran. Israel. What did they figure how to do this? They said, well, if Israel just goes and attacks Iran, what will happen is the proxies of Iran, which would be the Houthis in Yemen, Hamas, Hezbollah, Iraq, and Syria, would all train missiles at Israel and start demolishing Israel. Israel couldn't sustain that. So they said, what we need to do is have Israel knock off the proxies one by one. When the proxies are knocked off, then we could knock off Iran. Okay. That was the plan, and then things started to not work out. According to a lot of soldiers, Israel Netanyahu was dragging the war out. Netanyahu's criminal cases sank in, 3 corruption cases. So he keeps stalling going to the court by saying he has to deal with emergencies, the wars. He's still doing it to this day. So the war is helping Netanyahu, so he's dragging it out, trying to get control of the government away from the courts. In a democratic country, which Israel poses itself as, although it has no constitution, you have three basic components. You have the executive branch, which is Netanyahu. You have the legislative branch, which is the Knesset, which is operated and run to a good extent by Netanyahu, because his party is the dominant party, Likud party. Okay? And then you have the judicial branch, which he's trying to neuter. If he neuters the judicial branch, it leaves him as literally a Caesar. It does. All right. So we fought with Hamas. Hamas is busted up. Nobody's disarming Hamas. Witkoff and Trump and Rubio and Hegseth are all sitting there, oh, they got to disarm, we'll rain, doom and gloom on them if they don't disarm. This has been going on for 8 months? They haven't disarmed. Okay? So Trump's not a man of his word. Trump is a big mouth jerk. Okay? Look what he did to the protesters in Iran. There has to be over 100,000 dead by now. And that number rises every day, and he's telling them, don't worry, help comes. What help? Don't rely on Trump. He's very dangerous to trust. He's a liar. He tells publicly, he says, I told Netanyahu to quit saying that Israel made the Dome of the Rock, not the Dome of the Rock, the Iron Dome. We did it, and we gave it to him for free. What a lie. That's absolutely an untrue statement, completely. Unbelievably untrue. So, how do we get Israel psyched up enough to have a fight with Hezbollah, Hamas, Syria, and all this stuff? Well, let's set up an attack. Let this Hamas attack Israel. Let it happen for a few hours. They'll cause a lot of damage. Then shut it down. And the Israelis will be mad and they'll want to massacre the proxies. And then after we get rid of the proxies, then we're in position to get rid of Iran. So there we go, off to the races. Israel starts fighting. We're getting missiles for weeks and months. We lost people, we lost soldiers, we lost property, we lost a fortune and money. And then finally we get control of it. Okay, so what happens next? Well, Hezbollah enters into the picture in Lebanon. And they start attacking us a day or two later with missiles. And by this time, we're moving all the people that live in the south near Gaza out into hotels at government expense. And now we're doing the same thing from Lebanon, moving them out. Their houses and kibbutzes down in the south are getting destroyed with fires and everything else. And in Lebanon, they're damaging the houses up there for the people that the people had. And they're living in hotels. For over a year, they were living in hotels. Maybe a year and a half or a year and 3/4. All right, so Mind you, it's overwhelmingly predominant that those that live up by the border of Lebanon, Kiryat Shmona, Metula, and stuff like that, are poor people. Heavy concentration of Russian immigrants. They're poor people, and in the south, they live down there. They're poor people. But it got out of hand, and they were hitting Tel Aviv and Jerusalem, which is where the rich people live, and they were hitting buildings and everything else. So it didn't go right. It didn't go well. It got screwed up. How about that? Then what? We start fighting Hezbollah. We're fighting Hamas. Now we're on two fronts. Great for Israel, right? So our reserve soldiers, hundreds of thousands, are called up. So for a lot of time, businesses were shorthanded. They didn't have anybody there. Okay, and this came, not a long time after COVID. COVID was still being talked about in 2021, I think. People were still talking about vaccine or no vaccine, or how many vaccines, or how many people are getting COVID now, and are we afraid of another strain of COVID, and this and that. It was still, by the time we got well into 2023, I think it stopped, and I think we were getting tourism back. People were starting to come to Israel again, probably by, I'd say, 2022, they were coming back in. The mask business was gone away with, and, things were okay. And we had returned to normal, and this happens to us, right? Now, we're still fighting in Gaza, and every day we've been fighting and attacking things with Hezbollah in Lebanon. Every day, maybe 6-8 months now, every day. Okay? Did America help us one drop with Lebanon and Gaza? No, they never will. They'll never fight shoulder to shoulder for Israel or with Israel. They're fighting against Satan's chosen people, not Israel. The terrorists. That's just Satan's chosen people. Why? They want to kill Israel. What is Satan the most worried about? Israel. So, he's not going to, Trump or Bush isn't going to, or Biden are not going to go after Satan's chosen people, Muslim terrorists. So what happens? Well, we're doing it ourselves. Okay, we did great against them in Lebanon with the pager attack and killing their supreme leader and all, and with Hamas, we got the big leaders there. We did really good. Okay, hard way and the long way, economically bad. Now, I don't know how many people really left Israel. People are talking about 450,000. Do I think it could be true? I don't know. 250,000 is probably true. Maybe. Will some of them come back? Maybe yes, maybe no. A lot of people want to leave Israel for a lot of reasons. One of which is the housing is too expensive. I have never seen this piece of garbage Netanyahu ever say, I'm going to bring the housing prices down. I'm going to make sure we have affordable housing. They bring the housing prices down to a point where they're really going to work out. They have to go down in half. They have to get back to about in half. In other words, you need to be able to rent a home, a private home, probably for about $1,500 a month, roughly. And you need to be able to rent apartments for, a little one bedroom, nothing, $600 a month, and then $800. You need to be able to get a decent apartment with a few bedrooms for $1,000 a month or so, U.S. dollars. I'm talking. Okay, but Netanyahu won't lift a finger to do that. He's not on our side. He's not trying to make Israel great again or anything like that. He's trying to set up a fiefdom that he runs. you know, like the sheriff of Nottingham and Sherwood Forest. You know, he sees Israel as Sherwood Forest, and he sees the sheriff of himself as the sheriff of Nottingham running the whole thing maliciously and viciously. And if you go hunting animals in his woods just because you're starving to death, he'll put you in jail. You know, this is not literally Netanyahu, but this is, I think, a comparison. So, who's Robin Hood? Well, we don't have Robin Hood here yet. The closest we're not going to, you're going to have is Elijah and Enoch, the two witnesses, but they're not operating openly yet. We're still suffering under Netanyahu, sadly. And then came Syria, another wild card with Syria, off and on. Not Saddam Hussein. What was that jerk's name that ran Syria? Bashar Assad. He's gone over a year now. He went to Russia, stole money from the government and went to Russia. He would occasionally launch missiles at us and stuff like that, right? And Iraq would do it also. And the Houthis would do it from Yemen. So we had a front in Gaza, we had a front in Lebanon, we had a front in Iraq, we had a front in Syria, we had a front with Yemen, and we had another front in the West Bank. It was a legitimate front. That was a 7-front war, and then when Iran entered into it, we had an 8-front war. And did Israel get wiped out? No. How do you think the nations interpret that? You know, every leader of every country in the world, Satan's the god of this age. The age hasn't closed out yet. So they're all run by Satan bots, okay? And they can't do anything to Israel. I mean, they're making us miserable, but they can't get rid of us. So a lot of people don't believe in God, and they moved out of Israel for a number of reasons, okay? Are they going to come back? I lived in Israel in the 90s, the early 90s, for a few years, and I left. Long story, something to do with my first wife, who was a false believer, and divorce. You know, in any event, it's a long story, but I'm not going to get into it. So I went back to America, and how long did I leave out? How long did I stay outside of Israel? 25 years. I didn't want to go back. I knew what it was like. I didn't want to go back. I still remember when I flew back in. I had an apartment in Florida I set up from Israel, a furnished apartment, and I flew in. And then I used to travel when I worked for kibbutz so much, and I'd rent cars that I had, like, the platinum or the gold thing from, it wasn't Hertz, it was Avis, I think. I had the Delta Platinum, and I had, I think, Avis. So I didn't have a car, so I fly back to Israel and I rent the car, and I was renting, like, I don't know, Buick Skylark or something like that. So they saw my platinum status, so they gave me a brand new Cadillac. So I leave Israel. First thing I get confronted with is a Cadillac. Now I'm living in a typical American apartment with townhouse, well, almost townhouses. They were, I think, did they go up 2 levels or 3? No, they went up 1 level. There was 2 levels. And so you had somebody on top of you, and you didn't have anybody next door to you, behind you, in front of you, or on the side. You just on top. And they spaced them apart. No, you did have. I didn't. Did I? maybe somebody was inside me. No, I don't think so. The guy upstairs did or something. Anyway, it was a really nice complex. There was a lot of grass. It had quite a few units. It had a nice swimming pool, a not so nice gym, but enough of a gym to get some sort of workout. And I had it furnished, and I'm living there, and I'm watching American television. I'm watching the Star Trek with I can't remember the guy. Worf was in that with Will, who was the second in command, and the captain was that old guy. And I'm watching all kinds of good shows that they're in English. Everybody's talking English. So the night I get in, I decide to go to the supermarket. So my wife, that's my first wife, is still staying in the apartment. I get in the Cadillac and I drive to the supermarkets, which were open till either midnight or all night long. And I went to Publix Market and I walk in, and I've been traveling at least 24 hours, I think. And I get in there and I'm just like mesmerized in that supermarket. I say, oh my gosh, look at all this stuff. I don't know where to start. So I'm grabbing all the good American food. I can say, wow, I read all the labels. I don't even have to, work on interpreting the Hebrew. And then I'm talking to people in English, and I don't have to concentrate on bringing up Hebrew. And, wow, this is really cool. And I go back to sleep. I wake up in the morning. It's beautiful. There's no terrorists. There's no wars. I could go out and lay in the grass. I can go um, use the pool. Oh, I'm having a ball there. Go out and get Papa John's or, Caesar, or get real Chinese food. I'm real happy about that. And then over time, I got a business going. And I started making a lot of money, and I'm traveling, and I said, my gosh, well, what they do with Israel is they make a joke. They say, you know how to make a small fortune in Israel, and everybody says, no, how? You say, bring a large fortune over there with you. So, eventually the Lord got on me, and I had to get back. So I came back. I didn't want to go back. I know what this place is like. It destroyed my wife. I mean, she had a heart attack and she had a stroke years after. I mean, it's I'm built for this crazy stuff, but most people aren't. So, I don't particularly care for the food. I don't particularly care for the economy. I don't particularly care for the lifestyle. It's a very, very hard, harsh place to live. I remember, look, I'm old. I remember the 70s. Did anybody worry about wars and terrorist attacks and this and that? Nah, what was on people's minds back then? Um, well, in the 80s, they had, AIDS came, and there was a lot of trouble about AIDS. And then I think previous to that, they had herpes, but that wasn't a very scary thing, you know. But in the 80s, in San Francisco, the AIDS thing was a very big deal, but that's where I was living then. But you had, it was easy to make a living. Prices were not that high. People could afford things. People were wanting to get ahead with their job or their business. People were always interested in what are the new entertainment systems coming out. What are the new cars and motorcycles coming out? What are the new this and that? And hey, do I want to practice learning how to ski? Should I get into water skiing? Should I do, everybody is having a good time. Okay. And none of this was going on. Now, they were infringing on civil liberties in America. There was a women's right thing movement. There was black people equal opportunity stuff was going on. The government was fighting against gun control. They lost. Um, but the dollar was strong. Um, People, you were relatively happy, you know? Uh, the healthcare system was nowhere degenerated like it is today. And healthcare was cheap. I remember in the latter 70s, I was in Kaiser, which was an HMO, and I was paying $9 a month for full insurance. The electric bills used to be so small in the apartment, I would only pay them every 2 months. It was a waste of time to send the electric bill in. I'd get bills that were, $7, $3, $11. Like in the warmer months, you had no heater, and you had. I think the building had heat with radiators. I had radiators in the apartment. I think it didn't work too well because you used to. But no, they had radiators, and you didn't. We had great big windows in this one place, which was a Victorian, and I got all kinds of light. So when did I? I was young. I was hardly ever home. But what did I ever use the electric for? Well, I put on electric lights when I was in the house, walking around and doing stuff or cooking. Although I didn't cook very often, it would be rare I would cook there. I could just walk, let's see, one, two, maybe 3 blocks to this great Chinese restaurant and either eat there or get takeout. And it was really inexpensive, and maybe $4, $5 for a ton of food. And they had a seafood place in the maybe one extra block over or so. And they had, all kinds of fresh fish you could get. I used to eat Dungeness crab back then, or you could get shrimp. Um, there was, those were the two haunts that I would go to for food. Let me think, were there others? Uh, More than one Chinese place, but I had one favorite. There was a hot dog place called Noble Frank where they had like 8 different kinds of hot dogs. Occasionally I go there. It wasn't a big thing I did. Now going out to fine dining is, of course, another story. I used to have my haunts there that were fantastic. Greek restaurants and prime rib restaurant. I mean, great food. There's no great food in Israel. I never had a great meal in a restaurant in Israel ever that I recall. Ever, ever. I had good meals and never had a great meal, you know. And there was it was really you know, nice place. So anyway, I didn't want to go back, and then I got chastened by the Lord, and eventually went back here, and I've been here many years. I've sort of become like an Israeli, but I'm more American inside than I am Israeli. But America has deteriorated. I wouldn't have liked America. The thing that I had to learn the hard way: there is no good place to live. Satan runs all the countries, and they're all bad, and there's no place good to live. There is no such thing. Now, maybe in the 1800s there were. Maybe Satan was a god of this age all the way back to when Yeshua was on earth. So I imagine he had his people running the countries back then as well. But they didn't have, the technology of the modern day. So I think it was easier to not be bothered by the government. What the government does for about 95% of the people, is they're just a pain in the neck for you. Okay? In all the countries, the governments are a pain in the neck. Some of the better countries, they actually help the people. In Israel, they actually do help the people. It's more or less a socialist system. And you don't have, you can get on their government assistance without a tremendous amount of difficulty. But again, it depends on circumstances. Like we know a story of a woman that had both legs amputated. And they called her up from the disability office and they said, "We went over your disability claim and we're reducing your claim by 50% or 25%, something like that." And she said, "What do you think? My legs grew back or something?" They didn't even read the file. Netanyahu, that piece of garbage, just had them go around telling everybody they were reducing their disability to see who they could get away with it with. You see? That's Netanyahu. Garbage personified. Garbage. A merciless, black-hearted piece of trash. And the people here, so many of them like him. They get fooled by him. He's not their friend. He's more of an enemy than a friend. The only people he's a friend to are the rich Satan bots. If you're a millionaire and a Satan bot and you're going to support him, yeah, he'll be your friend, as long as you support him financially. It's unbelievable how they put up with this. I'm shocked. But 20-something years, this piece of garbage has been running Israel, and he's ruined Israel. In the 90s, Israel, before Netanyahu, Israel wasn't nowhere near as bad to live in as this. The food was always still the food, but it wasn't anywhere near as dangerous, nowhere near. And the government wasn't anywhere near as heavy-handed to the people as they are today, not even close. And the cost of living and the life was much, much better. And they were open to having immigrants come over, and they tried to help them make it and stay in Israel. And they supported them for years to keep them here. And God was merciful to them on that, because that's correct behavior. Not to say, we got ours, we don't want any more of you Jews coming into Israel. You're going to take the jobs away from us. We don't have educations. We play protexia, corruption with the government to get jobs and businesses. So we don't have any skills. You're going to come in here with education and skill, and you're going to take our jobs. No, we're discriminating against you. See? And that's what happens. And these are the people that support Netanyahu. So you can be the head of something like the electric company or the second in command and have a high school education. You don't know from nothing electrically. You couldn't wire a cell phone. I mean, you wouldn't know anything. And this is what this moron does to us here. You have no idea how wicked this thing is, this Netanyahu creature. You have no idea. Will he do a thing like this, have Israel start the attack on Iran, knowing that we're going to take a lot of missiles? He did it already in June. Yeah, he'll do it again. Sure, he did it already. Why would you doubt him? So is this thing starting to look a lot like what it is this? They want to get rid of Iran. America does, no doubt about it. The proxies are pretty neutralized. I'll explain. Hezbollah has been attacked so many times in the last 6 or 8 months. I don't think they have a whole lot of capability, but some. Hamas, not really anything. Syria, no. Nobody from Syria is attacking us. What can the Houthis do? Shoot missiles at us and send drones up from there. 98%, 99%, we take it down. Okay. So can Iraq hit us? Yeah. Can Iran also hit us? Yeah. Is there stuff going on in Israel that hasn't been publicly revealed about our defensive and offensive capabilities? I'm strongly believing yes. I couldn't tell you what this stuff is, but I believe it's out there. So the last time 17% of the Iranian missiles got through. Now that number could go up to 25% because Iran got better at it, or it could go down to 10% or 8% because Israel got better at it. Or it might stay the same because Israel got better at it and Iran got better at it, and there's checks and balances, and it's still in the same place. So the bases are going to get hit. If possible, they can hit them, and they're going to hit other things. What if they hit a high-rise building in Tel Aviv with a 300-400-pound warhead? The building is trash. You can't. The building structure will be. It's got to be knocked down. It's finished. And they kill 80 people or something like that. What is that going to drive the people to go? Hey, let's go get Iran. Let's go scalp them. No. So Trump's trying to use Israel. Now, Iran is saying that if you hit us, we're going to attack the American bases and we'll attack Israel. Now, they also have threatened to attack the countries that host the American bases. So where are we at with this? It looks a lot like Israel will start the war and we'll take the brunt of the retaliation. We'll knock out the radar. And then we got to wait and see what Iran will do. If Iran attacks the American bases, Trump has to get in the fight. He has to. And that means the UK will be in the fight, and maybe France and Germany and Italy. But the UK and America and Israel will then be in the fight. And that's a very high probability. Can Iran damage and hurt the bases? Yeah, physical damage to the base undoubtedly. Get the people, I don't know. They might have bunkers. They're going to try to do takedowns with Patriots and THAADs. I don't know. I have a pretty good feeling they're not going to get hurt or killed. Are Israelis going to get killed? I would say undoubtedly. And I don't know how badly. Now comes the iron beam. We've got that and it's functional, and I really don't know how effective it's going to be, except what I read. And it seems to be rather very effective. And it can take down hypersonic ballistic missiles. How many of them do we have? I don't have any idea. I don't know. I really don't know. Are there Israelis that know? Yeah, I'm sure. Generals and people like that. Maybe certain people that operate these systems know, but they're not going to talk. And why should they? They shouldn't. Could we have 25 or 35? Yeah. Could it be we just got 2 or 3? Yeah. They got iron beams with a low power that mount on vehicles that could take down incoming threats, but predominantly drones and simplistic missiles. Then they put them on Navy ships, and they are more powerful because the Navy ship is going to have a heck of a lot bigger generator than a vehicle will. And then they put them on stationary, where they got a big generator and they're going to be pretty strong. And then they got another version that has a higher power, and I think it needs to be stationary, although I'm not sure. And that'll take down the hypersonic ballistic missiles. And they're working on putting them in the aircraft as well. I think they actually did do it. Maybe Israel has 25 or 30 of these things. We had it working a year before they said they got it into. They said it was finished with testing and in the hands of the Israeli IDF in December 29, this past December 29, 2025. And there was a wait of about a year. So maybe during that year, they built a lot of units and then we got a lot of units. Or maybe back then they gave us one or two or three, but every month maybe we get 10 or 20. I don't know. I don't know. And I don't sit here and criticize Israel for keeping secrets like this. No, it's a good idea to do that. And I support them doing that. But the cat's going to get out of the bag when the fighting starts and we see the Iron Beam in action. And then we'll have a pretty good idea how many there are. I don't really know if anybody can really tell you how many Iron Domes we have. People could guess, but we don't know. I think people could guess with reasonable accuracy, But again, we don't know. And it might be nothing happens. Then missiles come in, boop, 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 and occasionally one lands in a field someplace and blows up a cactus bush or something, and it might be they never cause any damage or problem. I don't know. It's definitely an asset. Okay, Israel has a small navy, and they work predominantly in the Mediterranean, occasionally in the Red Sea, and they're not going to dispatch that navy to Iran, as far as I could tell. They don't need to, number one. If the Iron Beam works, you better believe Trump's Golden Dome is likely going to comprise the Iron Beam to some extent. It's going to be in there. So, can Trump join in when Israel gets attacked? He won't. Yeah, he can, but he won't. Because he's not going to step out and expose himself to be a savior of Israel. He just likes to talk like that, but no action. He's not going to do it. If Iran never attacks any of the other oil producing countries, Satan's chosen nations, and they never attack America, then Trump is never going to attack them. Beulah, what is your problem? Beulah! Dog sitting in the house howling. Now, she doesn't want to go out or anything. That would be barking. She hears another animal. She's nuts. Did you ever hear that song, You Ain't Nothing But a Hound Dog, howling all the time? I suggest you listen to it, Beulah. All right. when they used to blow the air raid sirens, which is a dark memory I have from the war, um, they would howl. They would howl. Um, so our economy is all screwed up, and if this goes down again, our economy is going to get really screwed up. And more Israelis are going to leave, and nobody's going to come and make Aliyah. You'll have a handful or so, they'll get an airplane full every few months, 3, 4 planes a year or something like that. That's it. You know, it's this guy is a real curse on Israel, this Netanyahu, and I'm telling you, he hates us because we're trying to the country's trying to put him in jail. He hates us. Don't think he doesn't. Don't think that. And this could be the whole plan from the beginning that he worked out with Biden, and now he's working it out with Netanyahu. There's only 10 American ships here now. Okay, I told you that. That is not a heavy duty thing, but there's so many other air assets here. It's crazy. So if Israel hits Iran, Iran may just say, well, they're using American weapons. I'm going to hit the American bases. And they do that. What are the chances of that happening? Probably pretty high. The other side of the coin is if they just stay there and suck up the attack from Israel, then America may not attack them. But I think they will attack the bases, and America will get into a fight. And then, if not when Israel attacks, when America attacks, they're going to definitely close the Persian Gulf. They've half closed it already. India, Modi, India, seized 3 Iranian tankers that were operating illegally in the Dark Fleet, evading sanctions. I'm very surprised that he did that. That's him working with Trump. So I'm pretty sure Trump and Modi are buddy these days. Okay. So the Houthis will attack Israel, and the Houthis will have their weapons shot down, more than likely, and the Houthis will probably start making trouble in the Red Sea again. Let's talk prophecy. Could Iran bust up the Israeli military bases? Yes, they did in the past. They can. Could they really hurt the Israeli military? Maybe they can, maybe they can't. It's possible. And would that maybe open up the door for the other countries to come lay siege to Israel, as per Zechariah 12? Yeah, yeah. It's possible, all right. It really is. It could be a possible thing. Okay. I just want to again caution you that these end times events like Zechariah 12 are going to probably come on as a great surprise to practically everybody. Now, we don't know the timing, but what we do know is what will happen. So we're not going to be taken that much off guard. Timing, we're not going to have precise, but we'll know the season, so we'll know it's coming, and we know what to expect, where the world doesn't. What do you think Trump will rename the Persian Gulf after the war? He ain't going to leave it Persian Gulf. Trump Gulf? Nah. American Gulf? Yeah, it's no fit. Israel Gulf? No fit. Freedom Gulf or Middle Eastern Gulf? Yeah, maybe. I don't know. He's not going to leave it as the Persian Gulf. If Iran closes the Persian Gulf, they have the probability on this side of not having a war. It doesn't mean America is going to attack them if they close the Persian Gulf, nor Israel. Won't happen. It might actually stop Israel from attacking them. Is that you?
Always dying. She's gonna come see me right now.
Who, Beulah? Oh. Now, is there a chance that Israel attacks Iran, Iran counterattacks Israel, which I would give a 99% probability, and then America enters into the war? That could really, really happen. The last time it sort of something went on with Trump, but it was just so weak and everything. Yeah, he might actually do it. He might. I'm serious.
Okay, everybody's home. All things are
Probably
good.
50-50. He wants to make sure he gets Iran busted out in a way that lets him get to the oil. It ain't never going to happen, but because we know the prophecy, but that's what he's going to try to do. And he doesn't trust Netanyahu because Netanyahu is going to go into hitting Iran like a blunt instrument. It's going to save nothing because he'll never get to keep it. He knows that. A late statement from Iran was, "We insist on our right to nuclear program, even if it leads to war." Maybe they do have good stealth radar. I don't know. There are bombs that did not explode at several of the nuclear sites that were attacked. So what he's saying is they dropped bombs on some of the sites, but the bombs never exploded. Could I offer a way to shed any light on that? Yeah. These were bombs that had a pretty hard shell, and they were supposed to burrow down in deep and then explode, and they probably didn't burrow down enough to get the explosion or something like that, so they're still intact. Iran just announced a NOTAM, it's a no-fly order or notice to airmen. So they announced a NOTAM over what they call in Iran the Semnan, SEMNAN area, which is where they have a missile base and a test missile base and stuff like that. According to what they announced, the airspace over this Senan is closed and missile fire will be conducted. That's probably a temporary closure, but it may not be. It may be just a closure. They just trying to tell people, if you fly in there, we're going to attack you. But that's not going to help them with American and Israeli stealth jets, but whatever. Here's some takeaways from the Iranian foreign minister. Enrichment is non-negotiable. Okay, we got that point. Iran will not give up uranium enrichment under any circumstances, including war. So even if Trump plays this game, we're going to negotiate. They're saying, yeah, we'll negotiate, but about what? We're not giving anything up, No retreat under pressure. This is Iran talking. Backing down is surrender. Well, that means they're not doing it. Iran doubts U.S. intent due to sanctions and military moves. So they're saying they don't think Trump is coming at him in a good light. They're right. Oman may host another round of talks, but they're saying that basically we'll come talk to you, but about what? We're just not going to do anything that you want us to do. So that's not a sign of anything good happening. So I don't even know why Trump is going there to talk to them, but they can do it. It's up to him, right? Iran doubts U.S. intent due to sanctions and so Iran is further saying that missiles are off the table. In other words, don't talk to us about missiles. Iran rules out any talks on its ballistic missiles program now or ever. Then there's the CENTCOM, the general that showed up at the negotiations. Only Trump would have the brass to pull a stunt like that, bring a 4-star general to the negotiations. You know, it says Aragazzi, the Iranian, called the participation of the U.S. CENTCOM chief in talks unacceptable. I think he didn't have the right English or the right word for. I don't think unacceptable is the correct Persian word they used, but maybe, I don't know. Outrageous would maybe be a better word to use or something. I don't know, but Trump sure lit them up with that one. I don't think he cares. The Iranians are saying they're ready for any outcome. They're saying they're prepared for this diplomacy or war and are operating as if talks could fail. Well, I think they will. I mean, I don't know why they wouldn't fail. And I think it's just Trump is marking time to bring more weapons in. This is from a source in Lebanon, but it's not about Lebanon. The supreme leader Khamenei, that's Ayatollah Khamenei, has transferred his powers to the Revolutionary Guard Military Council in case he's eliminated. So he's making provisions for his death already. That's interesting. Now we get news out of Tehran. Head of the Iranian judiciary. Now they got him acting in here too. The courts. No trust negotiations with Washington. The U.S. is mistaken if it seeks to turn the negotiations into a tool of trickery, deceit, and delay. Well, they got that right. But let's keep going. Not because, all right. All right, let's keep going. Globemaster, C-17 Globemaster transport planes and MC-130 Super Hercules of the U.S. Army landed in Turkmenistan for the U.S. Use in its operations. Obviously, in Iran, Turkmenistan. Wow. See, this is really pretty encompassing. So it's not looking identical to what happened in June last year. Similar, but not close. Different ball game here. The Hamas in Gaza is distributing 500 shekels to approximately 20,000 widows of Hamas militants. The widows, of course, from the war in Gaza. So they're using artificial intelligence to make a calculation based on all Hamas militants killed, including unmarried fighters. It puts the total number at around 45,000. This figure does not include members of the Palestinian Authority or other armed organizations. Okay. So this is the death count of the soldiers. 45,000 military out of an estimated 70,000 total deaths. So they've got 25,000 civilian deaths and 45,000 military deaths in Gaza. And that's considered pretty darn good considering the circumstances with Gaza using the people as human shields. So the statistics are actually pretty good. Not that there's anybody out there that's going to praise us except us. Trump might say something about it. He might. I don't know. And the nations, by and large, could care less when we come up with figures like that. So I don't know why they're so important to Netanyahu. See, this is something we're picking up. This is Chinese radar. I'll read it to you. An unknown radar of the IRGC was deployed in central Iran. That is probably one of those anti-stealth radars from China. They go on and say it's estimated that that this radar is intended to detect stealth fighter jets. Okay. And then we go on and we got a senior Iranian official will arrive in Oman during the week, getting ready for the meeting again, but let's see if that happens. This is a little update. Senior Americans have sent a clear message to Iran. Come prepared with concessions to the next meeting. So it looks like Iran wants to buy time more than America does, because America's telling them to cut the nonsense out. The next meeting's not going to have nonsense. Okay, C-17 Global Master transports and No, we covered that. So when India seized 3 of the Iranian tankers in the Black Fleet smuggling against sanctions, it was the India Coast Guard that grabbed them. It's the Shadow Fleet or the Black Fleet. They move oil contrary to what the sanctions dictate, and they're considered smugglers. So they seized the vessels, the India Coast Guard. The Iranian media did say that vehicle boats associated with Iran did get seized. Maybe they'll get India to return the boats. I don't know. This is just getting Iran more and more mad, and it's telling Iran they got to do something to make these sanctions go away. The problem we get with Iran is when you seize their ships, like India just did, they return the favor and seize ships. But they already seized 2 ships a few days ago, and it's not typical for India to seize Iranian ships because they like buying Iranian oil. So maybe what happened is the 2 ships that were seized belonged to India or a friend of India. And that's why India seized these ships. Could very well be. what India did also increases the probability that Iran may start grabbing more ships in the Straits of Hormuz. They may not do a total shutdown yet. If they do the total shutdown, then they have no Act Two. They just threw everything out there. They're not trying to. They they would rather their nuclear intentions be left alone, and they'd be left alone to trade however and whatever they want whenever they want. In other words, sell oil to whoever they want to sell oil whenever they want to, and have no controls over them. And they want to be allowed to run their proxies whenever they want and weaponize them and give them money and training and all the other stuff. And, basically they want everybody to just stand down while they work their way into becoming the Caliph of the Middle East and then wage war. And that's, what they want to do. And they want to get more and more weapons. They'd probably like to have 25,000 ballistic hypersonic missiles, with 1,500 launchers or something like that, to make it near impossible to control them or take them out or anything like that. So they're dangerous now. They're actually very dangerous, and they could become extremely super dangerous. And, Trump's thinking, what do I do when they start putting missiles not just into Israel, into Europe? And then Europe's going to start invoking Article 5, and then I have to get involved. I can't drop out. If I drop out before there's an Article 5, I'm not in breach. But if I wait for them to declare an Article 5 and then I drop out, that puts me in breach. Then I'm a bad dog. Let's see what's going on in the live stream. You know what? I'm going to actually look at the live stream from the. I want to see if I have questions to answer. I'm going to look at it from this. I can see it better. I thought I could. Let's see. How do I? There it is. All right. Let's see what we got here. I'll answer questions. If I can answer the questions, I'll answer the questions. I may not be able to. Well, there's been a lot of comments. Let's see. A lot of them were just bad actors putting lousy comments up to insult. Okay, there it is. No, it was there and then it went away. Let's try it again. I tell you, YouTube has just been a nightmare when they upgraded this. The way there it is. Now it goes away again. What a rot. There we go. It comes and goes. I have no idea why. If I hold my finger on it, it won't go away. Mostly it's I grew up in the Bronx in New York City. Been a lot of comments. Okay, that's pretty much. Don't have any questions that need answering there. Um, so what do we do at this point? Well, we wait. Trump is going, today's what, Monday, Wednesday. He's not going to America. He'll be in America, so he'll probably leave Tuesday night. He's got a, cheap, shabby form of an Air Force One, Israel Air Force One. It's a full-size passenger plane, and I believe he has a bed in it. And he might be able to take a nap while he's flying over. He'll want to be in Washington. He might come in. He might leave tomorrow in the morning or the afternoon or something, and get to America and get a place to sleep, and then meet in D.C. So they put him in this building they have that's probably 200-300 yards from the White House entrance or something. So it's a very secure area, and he'll meet with Trump. And what are they going to talk about? Well, I'm sure they're going to talk about Iran. Okay, Netanyahu ain't coming over there to talk about Venezuela or Cuba or what's going on in Minnesota. It's Iran, okay, and the Middle East. And I don't know what they're going to do. Don't know, guys. We're not seeing this high level of alert in Israel. What we are seeing is a high level. We're seeing probably the radar and the communications interception, and a lot of the intel is on intel gathering, very high alert. But I'm not detecting flights over the land by our jets, which is usually a very strong sign of trouble. No, we could go days I don't hear a jet. Yes, they put the hospitals on alert and get ready for mass casualty, which could happen, which means they get their blood and their plasma and their medicines, and they get everything ready, and they get, schedules for crisis management, and, they get it all ready, and that's good. They should. I'm glad they do. But this is not there. That this isn't. It's not in there. It doesn't feel like we're going to war. So I'm not really getting the strong impression that Netanyahu is going to attack Iran. But that could change Wednesday. You see, Trump might have, he could have posted, and then Trump said, "Listen, can you get over here? Can you get away and come over here for a few hours and we'll talk?" And I'll bring the generals in, and stuff like it. And then it says, yeah. So does it mean Iran will do a preemptive attack on Israel? They're not that dumb. See, once Israel starts fighting back with Iran, it takes somebody else to stop it. I knew a guy many years ago, and he was a funny guy. I liked the guy. He was pleasant, and I always enjoyed his company. He was a black guy, and old school. And he used to tell me, he used to box, I think, and he used to tell me that when he, some guys would start up and they want to get into a fight with him, come on, let's go outside. He'd say, well, let's not just go outside. Let's go down an alley or someplace where nobody knows we're there and can't see us. So that way, when I start smashing you into pieces, nobody comes along and pulls me off you, you know. Uh, and that's Netanyahu. Uh, Somebody pulled him off Iran back in the 12-day war in June. He didn't have any intentions of stopping. He was perfectly happy to go another 50, 60 days. And when that was over, if it went that long, Iran would have had trillions and trillions of dollars in damage, and the place wouldn't have even looked like it looked. I mean, look at Gaza. It doesn't look anything like. I mean, Gaza. You really think Gaza is going to ever get rebuilt? I don't. I don't. Trump does not, but Trump doesn't think Gazas are going to ever get rebuilt as another Gaza. He thinks it will get rebuilt as Trump casino resorts, uh, stuff like that, and not just Trump. The other people will get it too, Adelson's widow would probably jump in and get her hands on a nice 600-room resort. Pick up 300-400 feet of beachfront, and have the casinos and the shows and all of that stuff. What they do is they create. You know what a lazy river pool is? It's a swimming pool that's usually about 4 feet deep, and it's about 12, 18 feet wide, and it has a current. And you sit in a balloon or some inflatable device, and you got, usually it's a quarter of a mile or something. Could be a big one. You could have a half a mile, and it moves with a very slow current, maybe at most 2-3 miles an hour. I mean, it's slow. You're barely moving, but you're moving probably 3 miles an hour. And you sit in it and you float around. And you can't really steer the thing that well unless you go like this, right? And then they have a lot of times you're doing it during the day, although you could do it at night if they light it up, but it's really a daytime thing. You're doing it in the daytime in the sun, and you're going to get hot in the sun. So then what do? They have waterfalls you go under where you get ice cold water dripping on you. It's not for middle-aged people, and it's for kids. And you're not going to see a lot of 40-year-old and 50-year-olds doing it, but I mean, some will. It's for young people. So you put that up in a big hotel. Then you've got jacuzzis. They'll put jacuzzis in that are big enough for 12, 18 people, right? They'll have swimming pools that are, you know, uh, 200 meters long, 300 meters, and they're, going to be 60, 70 feet wide, really big pools. And kids can run around in there and adults can swim and all that kind of stuff. And then they'll have all kinds of other unique uh, water things. Um, what else? They'll have a couple of bars there that sell not just alcohol, but they'll sell juice and soda and bottled water that's cold, right? They'll have, where you get hot dogs, French fries, pizza, burgers out there. Uh, what other stuff would they have? Let me think. It'll have a beach so you can go into the actual Mediterranean. They'll clean the sand, of course, and put a lot of sand in so the beach will be pretty long. Like they'll probably strive for 60 yards minimum of sand. so they could stuff a lot of people in there if need be, and they could rent you a little cabana, which is a little booth closed in, so you could go in there and you're out of the sun, and it's like a tent, and you could shut the doors on it if you want privacy. So if you had a change or something, you could do that. It's tent doors, and you've got a table and chairs and maybe some stuff to sit in. It's different things, and you might have a little refrigerator in there. Uh, they put those on cruise ships, and they charge them $300 to $500 a day now for that. Isn't that stupid? But there's been such an unequal distribution of the wealth in the oil in the world, thanks to Satan, that the poor have gotten markedly poorer and the rich have gotten markedly richer. So they don't know what to do with their money. Think, there's people making $6 million a month, 25 million a month. They don't know what to do with their money. So they go out and they buy a car for $2 million. They buy a watch for $1 million. They buy a suit of clothes, a man's suit for $50,000. They don't know what to do with them, but what are they going to do with their money? Just look at it. So they start buying things, and they start getting what's called luxury goods of things that are, pretty stupid, really, and that's what they'll do. They'll buy a pair of sunglasses for $3,000. Flip-flops for $1,000. Designer junk, They'll buy a bottle of perfume for $1,500 or $3,000. They buy wine, and they'll drink a bottle of wine with a meal for $1,500. My opinion, if you bought a $20 bottle of wine and you bought a bottle of wine for $1,800, the $1,800 wine is probably maybe 1/3 tastier than the $20 wine, But it's the psychological value, They don't know what to do with their money anymore. That's the thing, and they just start. It used to be, if you went back 40, 50 years ago and somebody got rich, what did they do? Well, it was similar, but not quite the same thing. What did they do? They bought a plane. They bought a yacht. They bought a helicopter. They bought a big house, And where do you go from there? Well, then you get somebody to come cook in the house. You hire a cook. The ones that go to cooking school are, some of them are so-so, but you can catch a lot of them that are really good. I don't know how they do it. They got it in their head. I watched these shows about the cooks on the yachts, and they got it in their head, and they can cook maybe 60, 80 different dishes, or at least 40 or 50. And they do it in their head, and it comes out, and people go, wow, this is so good, They really, I don't know how they do it. But they do it. I can't do it. I wouldn't remember how to make that stuff, but they do. And they get really good at it, Now, some of them are just good. Some of them are very good, and then some of them are superb. And the ones that are superb, they're floating around, and they don't really cost that much to hire. When they work on a yacht, their living conditions are usually crappy. Frequently, they get their own cabin, which means it's the size of a small walk-in closet. And it has 2 beds usually, but they may take one out, and it's got 1 bed in there, a twin bed maybe, and maybe has a small closet, a mirror, not much. Possibly they got to use the toilet in the hall. The captain will get a real, a bedroom in another room, and might have a private bathroom, and probably will have a private bathroom, and he'll have a refrigerator in there, and a desk, and computers, and it has like a small suite in a hotel, and they might do something like that for the number two guy, but the cook might have his own toilet. Maybe, I don't know. It depends on the boat. But the guy's got to get up in the morning. If he's got to be in the kitchen by 6, I would say, at the latest. He's in there by 6. He's got to get the crew fed. Which, if it's a big yacht, there'll be two cooks, and they'll get the crew fed together. It'll be easier. But if it's a smaller yacht where they only got maybe 6 or 8, 9 people or something like that, as guests, he has to cook for the crew, which is probably about 8 or 9 people also. And he's got to make them, what are they going to eat in the morning? Well, they're not going to have, caviar and eggs Benedict. They'll have eggs, omelet, oatmeal, cereal, pancakes. That's about it. He doesn't have a lot to make. He probably generates pancakes and eggs, and the rest of it, if they want to have cereal or toast or bagels, they just kind of do that themselves. Then the guest needs an elaborate breakfast, you know, so they could have, anything. I mean, it could be anything. They could have all kinds of crazy foods. And then, so by the time he serves them and breaks down, it's probably, if they're up early, which is often the case, it's probably 8:30 and he's done. If they're up late, they might not be eating till 10 o'clock. So he's got to hang out and wait for them to wake up. And then he might be, as soon as he's finished, he's rolling into lunch. And lunch would be a late lunch, probably at 1 o'clock or something, or maybe 2 o'clock, probably 1. So then he's there and he's working till lunch. And then he has some time off because they'll probably have a 7, 8 o'clock dinner. So he goes back in, at 5 o'clock or something and starts working on dinner, says a few hours off. So it's a long day. A lot of times when I knew a girl once a long time ago, she finished cooking school. I think she went to San Francisco Institute and she got a job working for some retired Palo Alto doctor, I think he was, or an executive. And they were older couple, so they didn't eat late at night or anything like that. So she went in and she made a breakfast for them, probably about 7, 8 in the morning. And then she gave them a lunch. She stayed there, finished breakfast, started lunch, and served lunch, probably around noon. And then she cleaned up and she was probably gone by 1:30, 2 o'clock. And they came back the next day, and that was a full-time job for her. And they paid her not great, but she got it okay, enough to live comfortably. And I mean, she could have, if she was ambitious, picked up a job working in a restaurant for dinner or working in some other person's house that just wants dinner. Some of these rich people, they get up in the morning and they don't eat breakfast, or they'll just make some toast or have cereal or oatmeal or fruit and juice, and they're out the door. They're not doing that. And then they're at the office. And then at the office, they're going to go out for lunch or have a light lunch. People that are hard and serious about working, you don't want to go out and have, a nice big chicken and pasta plate with a big salad and bread and a dessert. You're not going to work the rest of the day. So if you're smart, what you do is you go out and you have a little sandwich, maybe, right? Or you could have yourself just a big salad with chicken, like a Caesar salad with chicken or without chicken, and then call it lunch with some coffee or something, and that's it. And that's how they'll usually work. If you're going to eat something more serious, you'd have some sort of fish, would be your best bet, like a ling cod or a piece of salmon or some white fish, or you could eat some shrimp or something like that, and you you don't bog down. You could eat vegetarian stuff and you won't bog down, but you got to be careful. That's an old cop interrogation trick. If you take somebody out, you could go to. He might be in your custody, might be under arrest, and you're not. You want to butter the guy up, so you're not gonna take him out with cuffs on into a restaurant. The restaurant will ask you to leave. They won't let you in. They might tell you if you like to go back and eat in the kitchen where the staff is, we'll serve you there, but not out here. So you take the cuffs off. You don't tell the restaurant what's going on. You tell the guy, if you run, I'll shoot you. And you put him in the restaurant, and then um, tell him order what you want. And the guy, what you want to see the guy order is a baked potato and a steak, and you have a piece of cheesecake for dessert, or ice cream and cheesecake, even better, and that bogs the guy down, and he might be easier to interrogate. Maybe. Might not work, but it might work. And then what would they tell you to eat? Well, um, like string beans and carrots and a piece of fish, grilled fish, right? With a small green salad. Um, or a piece of fish with some other kind of vegetables that aren't French fries, that aren't heavy starch or stuff like that. Just some mild, something mild without a lot of gravy and stuff like that. And you don't even need to eat the whole portion. Just make it look like you're eating. And while he bogs down, the last thing you want to do is sit there and eat uh, a steak or pizza or pasta and stuff like that. You take him to an Italian restaurant. It's a good idea, but you got to eat yourself something in the Italian restaurant that's very light, like shrimp and garlic sauce, or some sort of fish with a garlic or lemon sauce on it, or something like that, and don't have potatoes with it or French fries, and don't eat the bread, and don't eat any pizza as an appetizer, and uh, get a salad for an appetizer, and that's it, you know. That's what you eat. And dessert is coffee. you know, that's the way you do it. And then what does the guy have? Well, you could tell him, well, the linguine is really good, and the garlic bread here is delicious. You might like that. Or if you want, let's get some pizza for an appetizer. We'll get a small pie and have one or two bites of the pizza, and let the other guy, eat a few slices, and then linguine or rigatoni is good, or meatballs and spaghetti is excellent for them. That's a great, a couple of big meatballs and a nice plate of spaghetti with a carbonara sauce or something like that. Will put the guy in gaga land. You don't want to do that. you know, you don't want to do that. I learned about that stuff years ago when I was younger. I remember going to Thanksgiving dinners in various places, and when the Thanksgiving dinner was over, I'd be tired as all get up, bogged down. Everybody be sitting on the couch like this. So I finally, one Thanksgiving, I just ate very sparsely. I said, well, I'm just not going to pig out. I just had a little of this, a little of that, and I felt great after. So I said, boy, I'm never going to do that again. Like, and never, it just knocks you out. Problem is, I always did like going out and getting a nice steak, but that knocks you down. And a steak and a baked potato is excellent. I mean, that's really fun to eat, but it knocks you down. Uh, the best way to do it is with fish and vegetables. I tried carnivore for 3 weeks. My wife's on it, and she thrives on it for carnivore. I almost went to the hospital, I thought, from being so constipated and getting hemorrhoids. I was really scared about that, and I didn't want to do that again. But one thing about it is it doesn't make you tired. So it's kind of a paradox, you know. You sit there and you could eat a 16-ounce steak, and that's all you eat. You eat the fat too. And then you walk away from the table, and do you sit down and doze off? And no, you nothing. You know what's a good way to beat this though? Keep yourself active and walk around for 5 or 10 minutes after you eat a big meal. You should try it for 15 minutes. I'm not talking about exercising. I'm talking about just being on your feet and moving around. Maybe what I do is I take a shower a lot of times, and that's enough. It just, I don't understand why it works, but if you're active on your feet for 10 minutes, even, and a long shower could be that long, getting ready, drying off, and all that. It beats the sluggish feeling after you eat a meal. Um, the carnivore people eat only meat. That doesn't affect them. They eat cheese, although I don't think that's pure carnivore. Maybe it is. High fat cheese. They'll eat meat of all sorts, and they don't eat vegetables. They don't eat grains. They don't eat sugars, and yeah, they just eat meat. And weird, you don't get tired. You get more energy. I don't think that's how God intended us to eat, because when you read in the Bible, milk and honey and, grain is called meat and food, it's corn, wheat, barley, bread. So it doesn't add up to me. Uh, if I'm told if you eat a lot of fat with it, you don't get constipated. And I tried increasing the fat. I probably didn't do enough, but see, the theory is that the animals eat the animal that you're eating eats the grass and the vegetables, and it gets all the vitamins that way. And then when you eat the meat, it has the vitamins in it from the vegetation, and then you get it that way. That's the theory they have. But a lot of the meat we eat today is not free range meat. I could see their logic if you're talking free range beef, where the cow, walks around eating the grass like, they did in the 1800s, and drinking the water from streams and stuff like that, where they pick up a lot of minerals and stuff. Um, yeah, I see that, but not where you're getting animals that are inside and stall fed. I don't know how that works. Um, they eat fish. You can eat fish in carnivore, and I believe you could eat fish. Pretty sure. Uh, and a lot of, yeah, I mean, if the fish is swimming around in the ocean or streams or lakes, that's good. But if the fish is in a tank, it's not going to get the minerals and stuff, and then you're not going to get it. So I don't know how good it is. I have no idea. I don't know. But I don't have any intentions of going on that again. It got so boring eating. It's like you would just go eat to shut up your hunger, and that's it. So it's like you get food out of your life, you know, and you just eat to make the hunger go away and keep yourself as healthy as you can. And it's not like, I don't know. I never cared for it, you know. But you do lose weight, you do get more energy, and, it does do stuff. I don't know. But it got me real scared. And there's a lot of people that the testimony is, carnivore diet almost killed me, so I don't know. You don't hear people saying, Weight Watchers almost killed me. I don't think Weight Watchers is the way to go. I've often found food combining to be highly effective. And you eat whatever you want. The food combining works, and the intermittent fasting is excellent. You eat for 8 hours a day, whatever you want. The other 16 you don't eat. And that's easy to do. It sounds hard, but it's not. You wake up in the morning, let me explain. All you got to do is not eat till, let's say, 10 o'clock, right? So you've got, you could go to, like, you could keep eating till what, 7 at night, 8, 6, let's see, 6, till 6 o'clock at night. So if you wait till 11, you could eat till 7 o'clock at night, stuff like that. And then you just shut off eating. It's not a good idea to eat late. A lot of people in the world like to eat a dinner at 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock. That's not really the best way to do things. I think the best way to do things is get up with the sun and go to bed early and get up early. And, sitting there and eating late at night is like, going to a Roman feast or something like that. If there's a feast day, yeah, but for a steady diet, I wouldn't do it. But a lot of people like it. They like to go out to dinner late. And I've done it. And you know, I'm 10 o'clock usually I don't enjoy, but 8, 9 o'clock I like. You know, a lot of high-end restaurants go till, like in a big city like San Francisco, New York, they usually stop serving at about 10. Usually that's about when it stops. There's not much demand that people want to eat at 10 o'clock. Some high end restaurant, on the weekend might have a 10 o'clock seating when you get out at 11:30 or 12. That they might do that, but that's about it. New York is crazy. In New York, you probably can go out and eat dinner at 12, 1 o'clock in the morning. They got restaurants that'll probably keep the kitchen going till 2 or 3. This New York really doesn't sleep. It gets quieter in the middle of the night, like 3 o'clock in the morning, 2, 3, 4 in the morning. By 5, it's active again. 12 o'clock, it's rather active. So at about 1, 2 o'clock, it slows down till about 4, 4:30. And then by 5, it's active again. Delivery trucks all over the place, stuff, people going to work. And, you know, uh, a lot of people like living there because they make money there and they're close to where they work in Manhattan. They pay ridiculous rents, like 11, $12,000, 15, $18,000 a month for apartments, not mansions. And they stay, they're within, 5, 10 blocks of where they work. They walk, uh, and they could walk there and walk home. And um, if you lock yourself up in your apartment and you're in a high floor, like you're 30, 40 floors up, it gets a lot quieter. Not real quiet, but much quieter. And the air, believe it or not, tends to be better because most of the smog in the air has got weight in it and it goes down low. And when you're up, 30, if you're up 40 floors, you're 400 feet up. People live 60 floors, they're 600 feet up. You got different air up there already. And it already starts to get cooler than it is downstairs, a lot cooler. You don't have the heat of all the engines and all the air conditioners on the ground level and all that heat pumps and cars generating heat, so it's much cooler up there. And they have balconies, like, but they have like 90-foot balconies by 6 feet or even 7 or 8 feet, usually about 6 feet, I think, but they got 90-foot balconies, 30-yard balcony. And they put astroturf down, or some of them put real grass down, and they have sections on their balcony where they have, a place where they might want to eat outside, or a big lounge chair, or, whatever they want to do. And some of them have dogs little dogs, and they teach them to go potty on some sort of grass outside. Um, and then they have uh, some of them will put an awning over it so they could shade it if they want to. So they spend their time outside, up high in the sky. And some of the really more elaborate places will have a jacuzzi, normally not on a balcony, but inside near the balcony. So they could have sliding doors that open up, and the jacuzzi is usually a wood one above the floor, but it can hold it. And they sit there and they open up the sliding doors, and it's like being outside, and they got their jacuzzi. And um, in the winter they just close the doors. But a lot of these rich people don't stay there in the winter, but the ones that have to, because that's where they make their money, like with the stocks and the bonds and the options and the futures and the money and the banking and all of that, they're there, and the diamond exchange and stuff like that. So they do what they can to luxuriate themselves. But it is a nice thing to be up in the sky high in an apartment with a really big balcony. Some of them have 2 and 3 balconies, and they look out over the view. And it's rather nice, and you don't really get the idea that you're in a crowded street and it's safe up there in the sky, and it's different. Uh, you could sit out there when it's raining if you got an awning or something, or you could open the doors to the balcony and sit in the house, and the rain won't get you, and you get the air, and you could. It's not for everyone. Would I rather live in a house in the country? Yes, much more so. But there's some people that want that life, and they want to go to the operas, to the music recitals, the orchestras, the jazz, the plays, the new movies, the museums, the art museums, this museum, that museum, the access to the best airports in the world, best shopping. Although now I don't know, but it used to be you could buy anything in New York. You had the best shopping over there. But for luxury shopping, it's really really good. One of the many places in the world that can buy all the luxury goods and gourmet food, you know, stuff like that. Uh, but now it's a dangerous place. Going outside is dangerous. It started getting dangerous in the 70s. It did. New York got dangerous. I remember it. In the early to mid 70s, it was borderline. Like 72, 70. Well, I wasn't there in 72, 73, 74, 75, even 76. 75, it was still all right, but it was getting really awful. Like prostitutes were walking around topless in Manhattan. But in the 60s, it was very, very, very nice. It was even 1970. It was very safe. You could do whatever you want. You didn't have to worry too much about anything. Unless you went looking for trouble, you'd find it. But if you were looking to not have trouble, you grew up there. You knew what to do. You were okay. I mean, me and my friends used to ride the subways late at night, go down to Greenwich Village, go other places. Nothing happened. I don't think you could ride the subways late at night safely anymore. Um, but that's how it was. That's not how it is anymore. The world's completely changed. Nobody thinks the way they think today. Life was easy. Life was easy. Um, you were able to live in San Francisco in the early 70s on maybe 300, $400 a month. You could live. That's all you needed. If you made 12, 1500, you lived good in San Francisco. Like 72, 73. I mean, you'd have a nice apartment, swimming pool, upstairs, downstairs, balcony. It was really a nice place. I was in graduate school as a student, and I lived in Nob Hill on Jones, right near Jones, California, by Jones. I had the cable car literally right in front of my house. Like, I'd walk out of the apartment building, exit or entrance, and I would go 15, 20 feet and jump on the cable car and take it to downtown, go to graduate school. And I was able to afford that as a student. I wasn't working. I was able to eat food, no problem. I'd eat whatever I wanted. If I wanted to buy a steak, or I wanted to buy, I didn't eat a lot of steaks. I ate cheap steaks, chuck steaks, which is a steak. It was easy to live, and you didn't have to worry about wars and sleeper agents. And it was pretty good. The government wasn't really going anti-gun back then. Um, I remember even 78, 77, 78, going to gun shows in California and San Jose. Huge, huge gun shows. They'd have 400 or 500 tables. And it was a ton of cash and carry guns you'd buy there. You just gave the guy the money. Here's the gun. That's it. Legal. You walk out with the gun. California was just bothering you about carrying concealed. They didn't want to hear from that. But you could put it in your car exposed. So, in other words, if you kept it in your glove compartment, I used to keep a gun in the glove compartment at night. I didn't want to schlep the gun back and forth. It wasn't the gun I was very worried about. And then I would take it out if I was taking a trip and worry about it, just put it on the seat in plain view, loaded. In other words, the clip is full, there's a round in the chamber, or a revolver with bullets in the cylinders. Just put it on the seat in the holster or something, that's it. That wasn't illegal. Putting it in the glove compartment was illegal. You just left it up in the seat. The cop came over. You say, "I've got a gun on the seat." You put your hands on the steering wheel, your thumb around the wheel like that, and your fingers spread. And I got a gun on the seat. I just want to tell you. And the guy will say, "Oh, okay," and probably wouldn't do anything about it because he'd pretty much pick up right away. You're not interested in shooting him. Or he might say something like, "Can you put it in the glove compartment or put it in the back?" Or he let me hold her. They never really said let me hold. It wouldn't bother you about it. So you were able to have, and then that went away. Eventually, they got worse and worse, but that wasn't so bad. So if you were able to have a gun in the car, and you had a gun in the house, and you had a gun in place of business, you were pretty good shape. You were okay with that. The problem was in San Francisco, if you ever used the gun, the district attorney guys would go after you tooth and nail to put you in jail, even though some guy that has an arrest record of 11 arrests breaks into your house with a gun, and they run a tox screen on his dead body after you shoot him, and he was full of heroin and PCP and every other stuff. and he had a firearm, and he came, broke your door down, came in, you were boom, boom, boom. You know, the cop's going to say, the DA, why'd you shoot him 3 times? Well, he didn't stop. What do you mean he didn't stop? Well, it looked like he was still threatening my life. Or what do you mean? You know, and then they start over and over. And they try to put you in jail, send you away for a few years for killing a guy who broke into your house on drugs with a gun and a prior criminal history as long as you're on. So that was a problem. But if you weren't in San Francisco County, you really had a much better time of it. But eventually it got so bad they were trying to create a gun-free state, and it got stupid. You know, it just eventually became stupid. So living in California just reached idiot level. You know, they were having tons of criminals. San Francisco was practicing what's called gay tourism, and they were offering things to gay people that they couldn't find in their hometowns. So you had gay prostitution on the streets with minors. So you saw 14-year-old, 15-year-old boys standing out in the street waiting for some guy to pick them up and pay them for prostitute services. This was weird. So what that started doing was attracting these junkies that were working as prostitutes, and then the criminality started increasing in San Francisco to an insane level. You couldn't keep a tape deck in your car anymore. I had my windows broken 3 times in 1 year. I mean, you couldn't keep. You had to just not have any. You had to have a slide out radio with the tape deck where you pulled it out of the car at night and took it home with you, and they saw an empty space, then they wouldn't look in. They usually looked into the car before they broke in. Or if you had anything in there that looked like an expensive car or radio, they would just kick your windows in and rip it out. It was annoying, you know. It was that bad, you know. It was that I lived in a building in Pacific Heights, which was a great neighborhood, and it had 16 apartments, and 13 of them had been robbed, or 11. Either was 11 or 13. Mine never got robbed. I had the place fortressed. I had 2 locks. I had a deadbolt where you turn it, and another claw lock. So the claw lock stops it from separating the door from the wall, and the deadbolt stops it from being kicked in. The other one stops it from being kicked in too, but I had them keyed on the inside. So um, you just to lock your door at night, you put the key in on the inside and turn it. So that the only way they're going to get in the house is not to just get a hole in there and stick the hand in, and they basically couldn't get in. Yeah. And then with the getting in from the street, I was on the second floor, and it was a major thoroughfare. So that's the kind of guy that gets caught because everybody's going to see him, you know. But then he can't get out of the house because I wouldn't leave the key in when I wasn't there. So if he broke into the window, how's he going to get it out? You have to break out of the house. So then he has to go back down the fire escape. So the odds of him getting caught are very, very high. Like 80, 90%. Almost perfect to get caught. So that, they know that. So that didn't work. So it was stupid. It was just um, a bad place. So anyway, uh, we'll wait and see what happens. Trump, as far as I could tell, is still bringing more and more military equipment in every day. Uh, so I think he's just um, continuing to stock up. He's up to something. It might be let Israel bomb the daylights out of Iran, and we'll just sit there with, the sword over their head, and basically saying, if you're going to really start up and hit our bases in the other countries, we're going to cut your head off. But will Trump fight against Iran just because they're attacking Israel? I don't think we've ever seen that, and I don't think we ever will, and I think that they want that to happen. And I don't think Netanyahu gives a hoot about it either. He might want it to, or he doesn't care. And, we might be taking missiles for a month. You know what that feels like, what it does to the people? Oh, it's terrible. It's terrible. Makes the people not want to live here. That's what it does. It gets them to leave. So I don't know what else I could tell you, but it looks to me like it's just going to be another way to reduce the population of Israel. In other words, get them to move out, not slaughter them. Get them to move out, and it's just a question of waiting till the Lord just says, "Okay, I had enough. It's time to play Jeremiah 30, verse 11, and he destroys all the nations that he scattered the Israelites into." That's in Jeremiah chapter 30, verse 11, which is Jacob's trouble, which is Zechariah 12. Great is Jacob's trouble, but he shall be delivered out of it. Read Zechariah 12, verse 6. The two witnesses burn up all the enemies that are surrounding Israel. Is that not great is Jacob's trouble, but he shall be delivered out of it? Doesn't sound to me like Gog and Magog. So it could very well happen anytime. And I could be wrong, and Trump could start it himself, or Israel could start it, and then Trump uses it as an excuse to join in. We know Elam, which is Iraq, and Iran, maybe with a piece of Syria, gets destroyed, and they have to leave the country and scatter into all the nations. So it could be that America does get into it with Israel. It could happen. Trump and Netanyahu could have been buddied up enough where that'll happen. I don't know. I can tell you then it'll be a slaughter on Iran. This aircraft carrier, the Bush, may very well be floating around someplace around Cyprus. Because the British are putting airplanes in Cyprus, and France and Germany did also. So it could be that it's hanging around there to protect that place, which you could do from a couple hundred miles away. But it's just uncanny to me that I haven't read about any merchant marines or anybody seeing that flotilla and reporting it. I haven't seen that. Weird. There's no hiding anymore today. There's no sneak attacks. I just don't know why the media is not talking about where that ship is. Very confused about that. Is all the media corrupted? I don't think so. I really don't. I don't know. All right. So I'll keep you guys posted, but something's going to happen. Do I think it'll happen when Netanyahu's with Trump? It may very well. But what Netanyahu will do immediately is say, I have to get home to my people. He will always say that. And will he mean it? Oh, yeah, he'll run to the airport and get on a plane. Oh, no doubt. If the missiles are coming in all day long, he'll come back. No, he will. He will. Yeah, so we'll see. He'll come back if that happens. But I believe pretty strongly this trip has something to do with the final last minute things they're going to do just before the attack. All right, I'll get a prayer going for us. My Heavenly Father, Jehovah, I pray for me and my wife and all the true believers in their households. I pray that we would have your strength, stamina, and endurance, and we would have your healing and recuperative power flow through us, that we would be healing all the time of what needs healing, and we wouldn't be sick or hurt. And I pray for all of us and our animals and pets that we be safe and secure and happy, healthy, and whole. And I pray that we all have adequate money and then some, and that we, if we need clients or customers for our businesses, we have that. And I pray we don't get discriminated against by any entities, and we don't have any accidents or tickets or breakdowns or stuck or stranded with any method of transportation. We don't get picked on or discriminated or attacked or robbed or scammed or frauded. Uh, I pray we know the Bible better, and I pray for better videos, and I pray that you would show us more about when and if the wars will develop and how they'll develop and what will happen in and to Israel. And I pray all this to you, my Heavenly Father, Jehovah, B'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach. And I send my shalom to all those who love Yeshua HaMashiach. And we'll do some spiritual warfare now. B'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach, my Heavenly Father, Jehovah, I command all the unclean spirits to come out from every person that works for, owns, operates, controls, or receives money from labor for the governments, the national governments of any and all the countries. I'm going to read the names out of. When I read the name out of the, when I read the name of the country off, the unclean spirits have to depart from every person who owns, operates, controls, or works for these companies, and never return unto them again, and also come out of the same people that live in their house with them. And for the next 10 years continuously, no unclean spirit can go into any of these people, no guide them, lead them, direct them, appear to them, help them, assist them, lie to them, or deceive them in any way, shape, or form. And also for the next 10 years continuously, and this time of 10 years begins now. They shall not be able to enter into any building, boat, vehicle, plane, helicopter, transportation device, or land owned, operated, controlled, leased, or rented by any of these governments for the next 10 years continuously. B'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach, and this shall apply to America, Canada, Mexico, Israel, China, North Korea, Yemen, Lebanon, Iraq, Israel, Jordan, UK, France, Germany, Belgium, Austria, Australia, Italy, Germany, Estonia, Lithuania, Latvia, Russia. And I submit all this to you, my Heavenly Father, B'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach. Amen. Well, that ought to drive the unclean spirits crazy. We'll keep making them weary. All right, kids. I hope you got something out of this, and I'm out. And thanks for the offerings. And that's it. And I will do more live streams if something does pop. And I'll definitely be reporting on Telegram. Okay. Multiple times a day and night. Thanks.